In the meantime, President Obama facing the nation in a pointed speech just about an hour and a half ago about the fight against ISIS in the wake of that Orlando shooting. But he focused as well on a call to put back in place a law that recently expired.
Reinstate the assault weapons ban. Make it harder for terrorists to use these weapons to kill us.
While enemies' fingers are on the trigger, I'm here with someone whose police officers have stared down the barrel of these assault rifles far too often. Joining me now in a First on Fox Business interview, former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Kerik. Is the president right? Should we reinstate the ban on assault rifles that is the favored weapon of choice for a lot of these terrorists?
Honestly, Liz, in my personal opinion, I don't know if that accomplishes the task, and here's why. You then remove these types of weapons, and let me clarify. Assault weapons, you know, a lot of people think that these are automatic weapons. I heard your journalist there talk about automatic. This is a semi-automatic weapon. This is every time he pulls the trigger, it's one round. It's not a burst of rounds. It's not multiple rounds. That's the weapon he had. That's what most Americans can buy. To buy any kind of assault automatic weapon, you have to have a crazy registration, investigation, background stuff. So nobody has those unless they're really looked at.
I am stunned to hear you say this. And I'll tell you why. Because whatever the mechanisms in these assault rifles, he managed to kill about 49 people.
Well, there's two issues with this type of gun.
Would your police officers over whom you served back in your NYPD days agree with you, do you think? What do you think?
Well, you know what? I think my son is a police officer in Newark, New Jersey.
Does he want to face one of these things?
No, he doesn't want to face one, but he definitely wants to own one. See, that's the problem. You know, you create this ban on these types of weapons, you take them away from cops, you take them away from former military, guys that can have these real law-abiding people that can use these weapons.
How about allowing police officers or trained people to have them?
There's your thing. There's the real rules.
Like in Israel.
You know, you can have exceptions. You can have, you know, certain registrations. Due process. You want to purchase a gun like this, you know, in Florida they had a waiting list 3 days to buy a handgun. I find it kind of bizarre you can buy a gun like that without a waiting period. That's crazy.
Yesterday, sitting in this very seat you're sitting in, we had the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak. He was also the defense minister. In Israel, they have much more malleable laws that can, on a dime, be changed depending on the threat level in the country. Here's what he had to say about what perhaps we need in the United States to give our law enforcement and the FBI more latitude. Here's Ehud Barak from yesterday here on Fox.
Also, as the FBI, when it is really needed to delineate the line between, or the balance between private rights of the citizens and the public safety in a little bit different manner according to situation. Secondly, you have to change or reform, modify the rules of carrying guns so that such a person won't be able to get any weapon.
Well, there's the issue a lot of Americans are talking about. How did Omar Mateen, on the travel ban list, having been interviewed twice by the FBI, having said all kinds of things about how he loves ISIS and the Taliban, how did a guy like this walk through a hole as wide as the Mariana Trench is deep when it came to getting
And that goes back to my due process issue. You know, he was on the radar. All this rhetoric he was spewing for apparently years. Then he's able to go in, purchase this weapon without a waiting list, without a time limit, and nobody made a phone call to the bureau. Nobody made a phone call to the local police.
Well, how do we change that? What's wrong with the system?
That in itself, that can be changed. You know, the problem, the assault weapons ban and you know, changing the law, that's Congress.
Okay, is it a states' right issue then?
Yeah, listen, Jersey has it. New Jersey has it. New York has it. They've got really rough laws, you know, for people to go out and buy these weapons. You know, we heard the gun dealer yesterday talk about this guy coming in to purchase the weapon. There was no waiting limit on that gun.
Well, my police chief in New Jersey, because that's where I live, has told me that he has consistently tried to keep people who have been charged with all kinds of domestic abuse, from getting guns, etc., it gets harder and harder. Now, Jersey has pretty tough laws.
Extremely tough.
But he says that Governor Chris Christie sometimes wants to loosen these laws. I mean, how do we make sure that, forget about somebody who perhaps is questionable, who's purely American and not Muslim, how do we prevent people who've been ID'd by the FBI twice?
Well, listen,
from getting this?
That's a policy issue by the administration. And I know a lot of people's blaming the Bureau. They have to live within the Constitution of the United States.
Okay, so do we do what Israel and Ehud Barak said? Have a panel of judges, perhaps, who can quickly change that and maybe make the FBI...
No, you're not doing
no?
that. No, it's a constitutional issue. It's a constitutional issue, which is why the president's calling for the assault ban. He's got to get Congress to change the law. That's how you're going to change it. You're not changing it otherwise.
Are you saying that if we go back to, because assault rifles were banned, there happened to have been a window where Congress missed the chance to just reinstate it, correct?
Right.
Would you be depressed if they reinstated it? As a former, listen, you were in the Army as well.
I think there has to be an element of the U.S. population. You know, I think you have to be investigated. I think, cops, former cops, retired cops, military, retired military. The reality is, I don't want to take these weapons away from really good guys. And there's a lot more good guys in this country than bad guys. Because God forbid, if they ever needed them, if we ever needed them, taking them away from the good guys is not the right thing to do.
Sounds like we need an exception now to some rules. Good to see you, Bernie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz.
Bernard Kerik, 30 years of law enforcement, ran the NYPD. We appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.